I still remember the way the hallway smelled that day like lavender cleaner and roasted rosemary chicken. It was strange, really, how normal the house felt, how warm and lived in everything was right up until the moment my entire world cracked in half. It happened 2 years ago, but the memory has claws, sharp ones. On cold nights, it still drags itself out of the dark corners of my mind. I had just finished washing the dishes when I heard the heavy thump of footsteps behind me. Marissa's footsteps. My daughter, my only child, the girl I raised alone after my husband died. Her voice trembled. "Mom, we need to talk." I dried my hands slowly, the dish towel twisting between my fingers. She only used that tone when something was wrong. But nothing could have prepared me for what came next. Nate walked in behind her, arms crossed like a guard at a gate he didn't own. His eyes slid over me with that cold, smug look I had grown to despise. Something was coming, something rehearsed. Marissa wrung her hands and said, "We've been talking, Mom, and we think it's time for you to move out." Just like that. No build-up, no compassion, a decision delivered like a verdict. "Move out," I repeated, my voice cracking in the middle. "This is my home." Nate stepped forward, towering over the conversation like he was the landlord of the universe. "Marissa and I need privacy. We need space. You're always here. We can't start a family like this. Start a family." Funny how he said family, when everything he did was tearing ours apart. I stared at Marissa, my daughter. She looked away. "This house belongs to your father and me," I said as calmly as I could. "You two moved in temporarily, and suddenly you want me out." Nate scoffed. "You cling to this place like it's sacred. It's just a house." He didn't know. He never understood. This wasn't just a house. This was the last piece of my husband. His fingerprints were still on the doorframe he built. The garden was my therapy after losing him. The fireplace held memories of us laughing, holding hands, dreaming. "This discussion is over," Nate said sharply. He always spoke for her, as if she had no thoughts of her own. But then Marissa stepped forward, and the words she spoke shattered me. "Mom, I can't keep living like this. I feel suffocated. You're always hovering." Nate and I agreed. "It's best if you go stay somewhere else for a while." "For a while," I whispered. "Where would I go?" She hesitated. That hesitation should have saved me. But it didn't. Nate shoved his hand into his pocket, pulled out a crumpled $10 bill, and slapped it onto the counter. "Here, it's all we can spare right now. You'll figure the rest out." My heart stopped. Marissa didn't push his hand away. She didn't correct him. She didn't defend me. Instead, she slid the bill closer to me, gently, quietly, shamefully. "Just until we figure things out," she whispered. Something inside me broke, not loudly, not violently, but in that quiet, devastating way a final thread snaps. "You're kicking me out," I said, the words tasting like metal. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," Nate snapped. I looked at Marissa, really looked at her. At the way her eyes darted to him for approval, at the fear of losing him overshadowing the love she once had for me. At the woman she had become, someone I no longer recognized. "If I walk out that door," I said softly, "I have nothing." She swallowed. Her eyes glistened, but she nodded, and that was it. No hug, no apology, no last minute change of heart. Nate grabbed my suitcase from the closet, tossed in a few clothes without care, and shoved it into my arms. "Good luck," he said, his voice dripping with false sympathy. I walked to the doorway on trembling legs. My breath was shallow, my vision blurred. Every step felt like walking deeper into a storm I didn't deserve. I turned back one last time. "Marissa, please." The girl I raised, the girl I fed, clothed, protected, and loved through every heartbreak, she closed her eyes. "Goodbye, Mom." Then she shut the door. The click of the lock echoed through my bones. It was cold. Final, merciless, I stood on the porch with a suitcase in one hand and $10 in the other. The evening breeze brushed against my skin, carrying with it the faint smell of the food I had cooked for them. My own home, warm and glowing behind the windows, stood silent as I stepped off the porch. That night, I didn't just lose a house. I lost my daughter, my safety, my dignity, my world, and as I walked away into the dark, I didn't know yet that the same daughter who cast me out would come crawling back someday. To my house, my success, my peace. But that day was still far away, for now all I had was a broken heart and $10. The night I was kicked out, the world felt too big and I felt too small. I walked for nearly an hour with my suitcase bumping against my leg and my heart pounding like it was trying to escape. Cars passed by, windows filled with strangers living their lives, heading home, going to dinner, laughing, fighting, existing. And there I was, a 61-year-old woman with nowhere to sleep. I didn't cry then. Shock has a way of freezing the tears before they fall. I ended up sitting on a metal bench near a 24-hour laundromat. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, painting the pavement in an ugly, buzzing glow. My hands shook as I clutched the $10 bill, wrinkled, pathetic, insulting. I had raised a daughter, buried a husband, worked for 35 years, and now I was a ghost on a cold bench, trying to understand how love turns into eviction. When the sun rose, its warmth felt like a mockery. I finally reached for my phone. Pride swallowed is bitter, but staying silent would have been fatal. I called 9 different people, friends, coworkers, neighbors. Most sounded shocked. They all asked variations of the same questions. She kicked you out. Why? What happened? What are you going to do? Oh my God, Elena, are you okay? Sympathy is a gentle thing, but it has limits. No one offered a room. No one except Denise **. We weren't close. We had worked together years ago at a bakery job I held when Marissa was in middle school. We drifted apart after my husband's death, but when she heard what happened, she didn't hesitate. Elena, I have a guest room, she said. It's small, but it's warm. Pack your things, well, what you have left. Her voice cracked on that last part. I didn't know whether to cry or thank her 1,000 times. I chose both. ****, a humble room. A humbler rebirth, ***, Denise, lived in a small, creaky house with peeling paint and mismatched furniture. But when she opened the door to me, it felt like a palace compared to the night before. I set my battered suitcase on the twin bed in her guest room. The comforter was faded, soft from age, but it held a kind of kindness I didn't know bedding could have. Stay as long as you need, she said. I could have collapsed into her arms, but staying wasn't enough. I needed to stand. I had no home, no savings. Marissa and Nate had drained my account months earlier with shared bills and family expenses. I had trusted them. I didn't even realize how empty my account had become until after the eviction. And so, at 61, I started over. I got a job at a diner, waitressing from 6 a.m. to 1 p.m. Then I worked evenings at a thrift store, sorting clothes until my back felt like it was made of cracked glass. I scrubbed tables, lifted boxes, climbed stairs, cleaned grease, smiled at rude customers, and went home with sore feet every single night. But every shift, every ache, was better than the cold porch where my daughter once stood above me. I didn't buy anything unnecessary. I saved every dollar. I refused to be at anyone's mercy again. And slowly, painfully, slowly, life began to shift. ***, fate arrives as a flyer ***, one afternoon. Denise tossed a stack of mail on the kitchen table. Most of it is junk, she said, but this looked interesting. A faded yellow flyer sat on top. ***, property for sale. Needs major restoration. LOW price, ***. I almost ignored it. But something tugged at me. The next day I rode 2 buses to see the property. It was horrible and beautiful. A sagging roof, peeling paint, cracked windows, a porch leaning like it was too tired to stand, trees that hadn't been trimmed in a decade. But the land, it was enormous, and the bones of the house, sturdy, strong, waiting for someone to love it. I ran my hand over the weathered railing, and a strange feeling washed over me, like the house was alive, whispering stories of what it once was, and what it could be again. The price was unbelievably low, suspiciously low, but the owner explained they were desperate to sell, tired of repairing a place they never planned to live in. I didn't have the full amount. I barely had enough to cover groceries, but for the first time since being thrown out, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. I applied for a small loan. With my work history and age, the bank questioned me. But after 3 meetings, endless paperwork, and a humiliating interview where a young loan officer asked if I really had the energy for a project like this, I was approved. I bought the house, me, the same woman who slept on a laundromat bench 2 months earlier. ****, the 2-year rebuilding ****. The next 2 years were the hardest and most transforming of my life. During the day, I worked my jobs. During evenings and nights, I worked on the house. I learned things I never thought I'd learn at my age. How to replace floorboards, how to seal leaks, how to refinish cabinets, how to tile bathrooms, how to plant a new garden from scratch, how to patch walls, wire lights, rebuild confidence. Neighbors saw me working alone and sometimes came to help. People I barely knew dropped off supplies. Denise came every weekend with lemonade and elbow grease. Slowly, painfully, beautifully, the house began to bloom. It went from a broken shell to a warm, sunlit home with blue shutters and flowers lining the walkway. The porch, once leaning and sad, became my favorite place in the world, and not once did my daughter call. No birthday wishes, no holiday greetings, no "Mom, are you okay?" Just 2 years of silence, 2 years of choosing her husband over her mother. 2 years of letting the woman who raised her disappear from her life like she never mattered. ****, the appraisal ****. When the renovations were finally done, I called an appraiser. He walked through the house whistling under his breath. "Well, I'll be damned," he said, stepping onto the porch. "This place is stunning." He handed me the paperwork later that week. $900,000. I stared at the number until it blurred. My hands shook. My chest felt tight. Not because I cared about the money, but because I had built this. With nothing, with no one. With the last scraps of my dignity and the stubborn belief that I deserved more than what my daughter thought I was worth. When I told Denise, she cried harder than I did. "You did this," she whispered, "all of it." You rose. "Yes. I did, from ruins, from betrayal, from grief. I had rebuilt more than a house. I had rebuilt myself." And then, the knock ***, 2 years after being thrown out with only $10 on a quiet afternoon, as I watered the lemon trees in my new garden, a car pulled into my driveway. A car I didn't recognize. I wiped my hands on my jeans. My heart thudded in my chest for reasons I didn't understand. When the door opened, I froze her. Marissa, my daughter, pregnant, crying, desperate. 2 years of silence behind her. A $900,000 home in front of me, and I knew the past I rebuilt myself from had finally come knocking. And it wanted in. The day Marissa returned was warm and bright. One of those rare afternoons when the sky feels endless and every leaf on every tree seems to glimmer with possibility. I was on the porch, trimming the lavender I planted my first spring in the new house. The scent drifted around me, comforting and familiar, nothing like the chaos that approached. I heard the car before I saw it. The engine sputtered unevenly, coughing like an old smoker. I looked up just as a dented, mismatched Toyota lurched into my driveway. It wasn't a car someone chooses, it was a car someone ends up with. I wiped dirt from my hands, my heart ticking a little faster. Not in fear, but in that strange anticipatory way you feel right before a storm, even though the sky is still painfully blue. The door opened, and there she was, Marissa, my daughter, 2 years older, 10 years more tired, eyes swollen, cheeks hollow, hair messy and pulled into a loose bun. She looked smaller somehow, like life had been chewing away at her edges, but what struck me most wasn't her face. It was her body, her pregnant belly, round, heavy, impossible to ignore. She froze when she saw me. Her lips trembled. Her hands clutched the car door as if it were the only thing holding her upright. For a moment neither of us spoke. The wind rustled the lemon trees. Birds chirped somewhere far off. I stood with my pruning shears in hand, lavender scent drifting around us like a strange blessing. Finally she whispered, "Mom." It was barely a word. Just a sound, fragile and afraid. I didn't move toward her. I didn't run to embrace her. Not because I didn't want to, but because the memory of the last door she closed on me still lived inside my bones. My voice came out steady, too steady. "What are you doing here, Marissa?" Her face crumpled. One hand rose to cover her mouth, as if she were trying to hold back a sob. She staggered toward me, and before I could take a step, she collapsed into my arms, bursting into tears so violently her whole body shook. I stood stiff at first. My hands hung awkwardly at my sides. I didn't know how to hold her. I didn't know if I should. But her sobs weren't the rehearsed, manipulative kind I feared they might be. They were raw, ugly, shaking, with shame sobs. Something inside me softened just a crack. I placed a hesitant hand on her back. "What happened?" I asked quietly. She pulled away, wiping her face with trembling fingers. Her mascara stained her cheeks like bruises. "It's Nate," she said, voice breaking. He left me." I didn't react. I didn't gasp or comfort her. I simply waited. "He cheated on me," she said, "for months, with someone at his office. Then he drained our accounts and disappeared. I couldn't pay the rent. Her breath hitched. "I have nowhere else to go." Those words, asterisk, asterisk, nowhere else to go. Asterisk, asterisk, the same words I told her 2 years ago. The same words she ignored as she locked me out of my own home. My chest tightened, not with anger, but with the surrealness of fate's echo. She noticed my silence and rushed to fill it. "Mom, I'm so sorry for everything, for believing him, for listening to him, for—" She choked on her own apology. "I was stupid. I let him convince me you were controlling, that you wanted to ruin my marriage, that you were jealous. I believed him. I believed everything, and I pushed you out of your own home." She broke, then truly broke, knees hitting the ground as she sobbed into her hands. I had never seen her like this. Not even as a child, not even when her father died. But pain doesn't erase memory, and sorrow doesn't undo betrayal. I bent down slightly. "Get up, sweetheart." She looked up at me. Her face was blotchy, wet, desperate. "Mom, please, can we go inside?" I need to sit down." The request punched me in the chest, inside. She wanted inside, my home, my sanctuary, my peace. I swallowed hard. "All right," I said quietly. "Come in." I opened the door, not like she had done for me years ago, with coldness and finality. I opened it slowly, gently. The entryway smelled like lemon oil and fresh bread. She inhaled sharply, her eyes widening. "Mom, this place is beautiful." I didn't respond. She walked in further, touching the wooden banister I restored by hand, tracing her fingers across the wall. I repainted after 3 failed attempts, looking at the photographs of sunsets and gardens lining the hallway. Did you do all this yourself?" she asked, with help. I said, "But yes." She turned to me, tears returning. "I can't believe what you built. I can't believe what I left behind." I didn't answer. We sat at the kitchen table, the first thing I rebuilt in the entire house. A solid wooden table, strong enough to hold the weight of every meal, every conversation, every wound. Marissa looked at it, then at me. Mom, I need help. I need a place to stay. I want to fix things between us. I want to be here with you in this house. The words hung in the air like a suspended blade. The past sat between us, uninvited, undeniable. I looked at her swollen belly, her trembling hands, her broken heart, but I also remembered the sound of the door locking behind me, the cold air on my skin as I walked away, the laundry bench I slept on, the humiliation, the pain, the loneliness. Her voice softened. Mom, please, can I stay here just until I have the baby, just until I figure things out? For the first time since she arrived, I felt my heart go quiet, not soft, not angry, just still. My throat tightened. This was the moment, the axis, the turning point. The past had knocked, but the answer it would receive that would determine what kind of future we could possibly have. I folded my hands on the table, looked her directly in the eyes, and prepared to speak the words that would change everything. The kitchen was warm with late afternoon light. Dust floated lazily through the beams of sun filtering in through the window, and for a strange, surreal moment, everything felt too peaceful for the war happening inside my chest. Marissa sat across from me, shoulders trembling, hands folded, eyes red. She looked like a child waiting for punishment, not a grown woman waiting for mercy. I took a slow breath, not to calm myself, but to steady the truth I was about to deliver. Marissa, I began. She visibly braced herself, like someone preparing for a wave. But before my next words could leave my lips, she leaned forward. Mom, please, before you say anything, just let me explain. I didn't stop her. She wiped her eyes with the back of her shaking hand, breath hitching. I was stupid, she whispered. I was blind. Nate, he said things about you. Made you sound selfish, controlling, jealous. He said you were trying to make us depend on you forever, that you wanted to control our marriage. She swallowed hard, and I believed him, because, her voice cracked, because it was easier to believe lies than admit I chose the wrong man. Silence settled between us. Heavy, sad, I didn't respond, not yet. She opened her purse with trembling fingers and pulled out a wrinkled old ultrasound photo, sliding it across the table. I'm having a girl, she whispered, your granddaughter. The words punched me softly in the heart. A girl I'd dreamed once of holding my grandchild, rocking her, kissing tiny fingers, teaching her about gardens and recipes and family stories. But that dream belonged to a different timeline, one that hadn't happened, one that couldn't erase the past. Marissa reached out, grabbing my hands suddenly, desperately. I want to raise her differently, Mom, with love, with safety, with the family I always had but didn't appreciate. I want to start over. I want a second chance. Her breath broke. I want to live here, to be with you. Please let me come home. Home, that word stung. Because the last time I used that word with her, she locked me out of it. I slowly withdrew my hands from hers. Her face fell instantly. Marissa, I said softly, I need you to listen very carefully. She nodded quickly. Too quick. Like she thought agreeing fast enough would win her a place in my house. But I wasn't the same mother she threw away. Life had rebuilt me harder, sharper, wiser. I folded my hands on the table. 2 years ago, I stood on my porch with a suitcase in one hand and $10 in the other. Do you remember that? Her eyes filled with tears again, shame pouring out of her. Yes, she whispered. I remember. You locked the door behind me. She bowed her head. A tear fell onto her shirt. I continued, voice steady. I told you I had nowhere to go. You didn't care. You sent me out into the world alone. And do you know what happened after that? She shook her head silently. I slept on a metal bench my first night. I said, in front of a laundromat, with strangers walking by with nothing, no safety, no dignity, no home. Her breath broke into a soft sob. Mom, I'm not done. She froze. I built this home. I said, gesturing around us. With these hands, with no family, with no daughter, I worked double shifts. I bled, I cried, I rebuilt everything I lost. I pointed toward the polished wood floors. The freshly painted walls, the curtains I sewed myself. This house is not built on comfort or inheritance, I said. It's built on survival. She covered her face as if my words were blows. And now, I continued, after 2 years of silence, 2 years of no calls, no apologies, no visits. After you pretended I didn't exist. You show up at my door only because you lost everything. She sobbed harder. Mom, I'm sorry. I believe that you're sorry. I said softly, but you being sorry doesn't erase the consequences. She looked up, hope flickering. Maybe she thought this was the part where I'd soften, where I'd tell her she could stay, that I would take care of her like I always had. But I wasn't that woman anymore. So I spoke the truth she needed to hear, not cruel, not cold, but firm. You cannot live here. Her breath caught. Complete shock washed over her face. What? Mom, no. No, please, You can't live here, Marissa. I repeated gently. Not now, maybe not ever. She shook her head, hair sticking to her wet cheeks. But I'm pregnant. I'm alone. I have nowhere else. So was I. That silenced her. I leaned forward, my voice barely above a whisper. When you locked that door, you taught me a painful, unforgettable lesson. Asterisk, asterisk, love doesn't mean being someone's safety net. Asterisk, 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 and motherhood doesn't mean sacrificing yourself for someone who would abandon you. Asterisk, asterisk. Her face crumpled. She folded into herself as if trying to hide from the truth. I continued, calm and unshaken. I will help you, I said. I'll pay for a motel for a week. I'll help you find resources, housing assistance, prenatal care, support programs. I'll buy you groceries. I'll make sure you and your baby are safe. Her tears slowed, confusion replacing shock. But, I added, I will not turn my home into another place for you to use and discard. This is my sanctuary, my hard-earned peace, and you're not moving in. The words landed between us, quiet but immovable. Marissa covered her mouth, sobbing silently. I thought you'd forgive me, she whispered. I did forgive you, I said softly. But forgiveness is not a door you get to walk through whenever your life falls apart. She cried harder. Mom, I don't know what to do. I stood up slowly, walked around the table, and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. You start over, I said, the same way I did. She looked up at me, broken, lost, terrified. Will you still be in my life? She asked, voice shaking. I hesitated, not out of cruelty, but caution. I'll be here, I said finally, but not as your lifeline, as your mother. If you want a relationship, we'll rebuild it slowly, carefully, respectfully. She nodded slowly, though heartbreak clung to her. That was enough, for now. I walked her to the door, the same door she once shut on me. She turned before stepping out. Mom, I really thought you'd let me stay. I smiled sadly. I really thought you'd never throw me out. Her eyes lowered. She walked to her car with quiet sobs shaking her shoulders. I watched her drive away, not with anger, not with triumph, but with the bittersweet ache of a mother finally choosing herself. When I closed the door behind me, I didn't slam it. I didn't lock it with fear. I simply closed it gently, asterisk, asterisk, because this time it was my choice. Asterisk, asterisk, this time, the door stayed closed for the right reasons.